Thank you both. Our next question's from Dan with Wedbush. Dan, please turn on your camera, and then you'll receive a prompt to unmute your line.
Hello?
Yeah, thank you. So it was a great call and just a phenomenal insight that you've provided. I guess my question would be, when it comes to AIP, what surprised you, Alex and the team, in other words, the last 10 weeks? Has it surprised you just what we've seen from customers, just how dramatic the sort of surge of interest has been?
Sham should also talk about this, but what has very much surprised me is the way in which American institutions have metabolized the lessons of the last software wave. So they have a much deeper understanding of what the problem would be that you would solve. And the operators, so the people actually running the business in America, realize the determinant variable for changing their margins, changing their profit, and outmaneuvering their competition is AI. And so then you have the dynamic with the board. The board is insisting on governance. The operators are insisting on adoption. This is very, very different than anything I've ever seen. Typically, with software intervention from the outside, you've got to convince the CIO, the board doesn't care, and the operator is focused on business metrics. Here, the operators are saying, I know, for example, I was talking to one of the largest transporters of people in the world, and the operator is saying, okay, I know we have a problem with churn. I know we have a problem with logistics. These problems can only be solved algorithmically, but I can't solve them unless I have a governance structure that allows me to solve them, because my board will go nuts. That is basically a shape of a problem only we can solve. And this is happening all over America, various problems like this. I'll give you another example. One of the advantages of AI is that if you want to do manufacturing, say you want to do Japanese manufacturing in America, you're actually having to use Japanese methodologies with American workers, which heretofore has not been possible. AI can actually allow you to manage the internal dynamics of your workforce so that you get the Japanese culture with American workers in the US. And this is just absolutely game-changing for our country. And why is it that, now there are other countries, but Europe here is really going to struggle, but other countries, why is this game-changing particularly for America? Because it allows us to do manufacturing at a level we typically could not do in use cases that we were not good at. It allows us to change the margins. It allows us to do it safely. It realigns the institution. So now the IT person, the operator, and the CEO are very focused on a use case that will change the share price. It's very unusual for institutions to be fully aligned unless someone's shooting at you. It's like the only institutions I've ever seen that are fully aligned, literally someone is shooting at you. And even then, the IT person is often like, well, why can't I buy this from my cousin? It's like, and literally the special operator kicks the IT. So this is a completely different moment. And then I'll say something else. Typically, this moment would be captured by non-incumbents, people, early stage companies. But the market is moving too quickly. The barriers to get inside these companies are still there. And then the other incumbents, some of them are very interesting, but most of them just don't build products. They are companies with thin, beautiful companies. They do things we can't do, but they don't really have many engineers. The engineers have been there for 50 years. They have huge sales forces. They cannot build something that's relevant. And if they could, it's going to take years. And there's nothing to acquire. We're not for sale.
And on the ground, working with customers, I would just add that the ambition has gone way up. People expect the software to work. What do I expect of the software I'm getting from my IT organization has gone up. Then the ambition of their own use cases. What do I want to accomplish with the software has gone way up. So that's created a lot of white space to go after. And then when you can deliver 15 co-pilots in 9 weeks, it's, you just get so much more pull on that. The other part that's been rewarding is, like, we no longer spend time talking about why do you need an ontology. We don't even have to use that word anymore because it's intuitive. It's obvious, the infrastructure we've built and how that enables you to actually accomplish these ambitious use cases. So it's just been a huge tailwind for us.
Thanks, Alex and Sham. Our next question is from Mariana with Bank of America. Mariana, please turn on your camera, and then you'll receive a prompt to unmute your line.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Very nice to see
So my
you.
question is going to be about AIP. You mentioned more than 100 organizations using it right now. How are you thinking about ratio and timing of conversion? And second, on the other conversations we're having with like 300 plus organizations, how many of those are willing to use it on a Foundry platform versus their own?
You want to take this?
Sure. So
By the way, it's a pleasure to see you.
Finally.
We're in the phase right now where we're very focused on driving compounding usage of this. It's like, we've done this with Gotham, we've done this with Gaia, with Foundry, with Apollo, and what we're excited to see is that we have over 5,000 monthly users. The users are growing 50% month over month. Obviously, we've been doing this for 10 weeks now. That's quite a bit in the enterprise for the pace that we're going at here. I think, let's look and see what happens in the next few months here, but we don't think it's going to be too long to kind of turn that corner. Can you remind me the second part? What was your question?
People who don't have Foundry, how does that work?
Well, I think the real focus on the AIP product strategy is to make sure that you can use AIP without Gotham, Foundry, or Apollo, and that to the extent you see the value in these things, you're going to pull them along with you. Now, I think that's where ontology has been most useful in both contexts. We've deployed operational workflows on classified networks using this technology in real-world exercises. That's only accomplishable because they're standing on a decade of this well-ontologized data and the kind of enterprise tools that they have for warfighting to accomplish those use cases. So when you look at the time to value, it helps them solve for their use case. The other part, though, I would point out is people then see the value of bringing their own tools to bear. When I think about the work we're doing with pharma companies and many of the AI models that they've already built, this actually helps them close that last mile where they feel like, look, we have these exquisite models, we have these libraries. How do we actually connect it to the business case of driving drug development more quickly? And then you see these sort of hybrid architectures emerging where you have AIP, you have Foundry, you have their homegrown systems working quite harmoniously against the ambitious problem. And so I think that's been pretty productive. And I think the good part about this, because it's so generative right now, is that there is no reference architecture. You're not getting caught up in kind of academic questions of how should we design this thing. People are forging that and figuring that out relative to what works and delivers value.
Let me just riff on that a little bit. We built this original product, our first product got us off the ground, made us famous in a very small market called clandestine services. And that product PG, did something really interesting. It de facto taught the world what the use case is that you would need to solve, and then provided the product that solved it. And that's exactly what we're doing with AIP. It's like, you do have an advantage if you already have Foundry, because we've already kind of pre-taught you where the road is going to go. But right now, to Shyam's point, and point I made earlier, there is no roadmap. The product is actually teaching people what the roadmap would look like. That doesn't mean everyone will buy AIP, by the way. A lot of people say, okay, well, I need these 15 things. I need what Shyam's calling ontology, the ability to interact with the LLM. I need an ability to take that out and turn it into logic. I need an ability to run that on my enterprise safely. I need all these things. And I want to spend, some people are going to say, hey, I want to spend $500 million building that because I want to own it. A lot of those people will fail. Some will succeed. Lots of the other people will buy it from Palantir. But we are de facto teaching people the quote-unquote roadmap of the way the world will look and the problems you'll have to solve. And it teaches them because you can show it live in action. And that's what's going on in the market. And that gets to, when will we actually monetize this? We will monetize. Palantir is guilty of many things. People thought we were insane. Some people think I'm eclectic. Some analysts think that I am talking something they've never heard of, right? Often right. We have no problem monetizing. We make $2.9 million per commercial customer across the world. We will figure out how to monetize it. First, we're teaching the market what it is. We're getting people on board. We're showing people that these are the kind of problems you'll have to solve if you want to engage in actually making money, as opposed to writing neat poetry that may be scary to your enterprise and your board won't let you install anyway. And then we will allow people, then we will charge for that.
Thank you both. Alex, as always, we have a lot of investors on the line. Are there any other thoughts you'd like to share before we end the call?
Well, as usual, I'd like to thank our, many of our supporters, our clients who've seen this transformation and supported it, who are adopting AIP. The Palantirian team, which goes through the vicissitudes of our shifts and now is fully aligned on building AIP. Our retail investors, who I think have been way ahead of everyone else in understanding the product, actually testing it, looking at it, calling customers, and in general, the spirit of American innovation from which we are profiting. And thank you for your time.
Thanks, Alex. That concludes Q&A for today's call.
Attack.